That's awesome.
So we're international.
Really, you are international. I swear, you are connected globally. All right. Awesome. All right. Well, we're going to go ahead and kind of officially start. I'm going to leave this poll up just for another minute or two as some more people join in. But welcome everyone. Thank you so much for coming. I am the director of operations for Moxie Chicago. We were kind of an organization that was birthed out of Entrenuity, who has done work in the South and West sides of Chicago with entrepreneurship development for like 20 years. And Moxie is actually launching our brand new building inside an old building, but brand new renovation for co-working, private offices, and just events like these. Our whole goal is to be able to bring resources, access, business growth for Black, Latinx, and women founders. So we have been doing that a long time, and there's actually been a group called Moxie Women. I think it's been at least 3 years.
About 4 years.
4 years that Renita has taken the helm on, and we've been connected, and it's been awesome. And unfortunately, with Corona, haven't been as connected in person, but we're kind of, especially with the building opening up, kicking back off, trying to bring together all these powerful voices and women and leaders together to encourage and to move forward. And as I talked to Renita about, this event, and it just, the natural discussion came up, as one I'm sure we've all faced, is what do you do with in an environment that's male dominated, male led? And I know personally, it's just really interesting looking back. I wish I had had this sort of conversation when I was younger in my career, because I don't think I understood what was happening in certain environments where it had some kind of toxic male bosses. And I'm sure there were other reasons of their mistreatment of certain people. But looking back, I see now where a lot of that probably was influenced by the fact that I was a female. Maybe that I was taller than them. I don't know. There was probably a couple of things.
We're gonna talk about that.
Right. I know. It's so funny. So I'm really hoping this discussion, we're only here an hour. We're not going to answer every single question or talk about every story, but we just want to be an encouragement for everyone to feel like, you're not alone if you have faced a similar experience. And I think especially for women of color in the workplace, there's just an extra level of just challenges that have come with that. So we want to be a safe place. We want to also let you be free to share your experiences, and as you feel comfortable. We are recording this session just to let you know, to share with those who aren't able to be with us today, but want to participate and learn from Renita. So with all of that said, let me give you a brief recap, a brief introduction to Renita, and then I'm going to let her take the helm. If you're just joining, please fill out the poll, and then we'll move on in just a second. So Renita is passionate about leadership. So she's the oldest of 5 children and the oldest grandchild on both sides of the family. So she was often voluntold to take on some task and learn early on that responsibility is difficult without any authority. So she has been a student of leadership since, and applying what she read, witnessed, and experienced as an Air Force officer and leadership coach to consistently improve her leadership. Since retiring from the Air Force after 27 years and moving to Chicago, Renita has put her leadership knowledge to use, co-founding the Social Leadership Academy, a global education company for aspiring entrepreneurs and leaders, facilitating Moxie Women, a group of Christian leaders and entrepreneurs, and then creating the Leadership Empowerment Academy for the Air Force Academy High School to help young leaders find their leadership strengths. So her company, Leadership Unlocked, is a full-service leadership development and training company, which focuses on developing servant leaders. She also released a book, congrats, it's called Just Breathe, Leading Myself One Breath at a Time. And that was released this last year in 2019. And she believes that being a leader you are called to be is a journey of a lifetime. So with all that said, Renita, I'm going to pass it off to you. Again, just so everyone knows, this is going to be interactive. If you want to share inside the chat, if you feel like there's too many things happening and you want to share in the chat, we're going to welcome people to share live speaking. Just as a reminder, keep it brief because we don't have a lot of time. And I think that's it.
Thank you so much, Angela. Hey, everybody. If I didn't speak to you, if I didn't say hey to you, hey, I see some people from my hometown on here. I see some friends that I've made through the military, some of my sorority sisters, fellow colonels. Thank you so much for being here, for taking time out of your day to be with us. You may have been on calls all day already. You may have rushed through lunch. So I'm going to encourage you to sit up if you're in a position to do so. Put your feet flat on the floor, sit up tall, and close your eyes if you're comfortable doing so. And I want you to take some slow, deep breaths just to ground and center yourself in this moment that we have together. Just inhale slowly. I'm doing it too, so I can slow my talking down. Inhale some calm. And exhale any distractions, anything that may be around you to keep you from focusing on what we're going to do right now. And just continue to breathe. Okay. All right, so how many of you watched the vice presidential debate? It's about a month ago, right? Anybody? Just raise your hand. I can see some people if your cameras are on, right? We saw, all of us, if you watched it, you saw a woman, our vice president-elect, withstand a storm. I mean, she was interrupted, she was talked over, she was rushed. And what I loved about how she responded is she was so calm, right? She was calm. She insisted that she be heard despite the behavior of her male opponent. And that actually was the catalyst for this discussion. So I'm going to share something with you. You may have experienced this.
Well, that's not.
I don't have a mortgage either, so that's different.
We're not
Could be
really
different. You could be,
We're not
the
really,
whole sticky customer thing makes more sense for a mortgage because it's so long term.
yeah, I mean, these are metrics.
No, I think the deliverables, it's
Yeah, we would try to use
Good
it.
explanation.
So kind of like we
Yeah, we need to use data mining basically.
I don't know, but if we want to
In our data mining, I think that we need to focus more on the customer specific data rather than the zip code. So because we want to really break down.
input no. So if it's empty, means no bank.
selling at this.
Yes. Good. Well, I tried to do too much. I apologize for that. I couldn't stop the videos. All right. So as I was saying before I interrupted myself, if you have, this is what often happens, right? So the video, we saw a young woman who was, trying to talk. She's from the STEM field, and that is particularly notoriously biased. And so we saw her trying to be heard in this meeting, this cyber meeting. And so she just, she was being interrupted. You could see and hear her frustration. And I was asking who had had that experience when I interrupted myself. But here's the thing, it's not just anecdotal. The research shows that men talk more. They assume that they know more, even when they don't know what they're talking about, and they interrupt more. And so blocking interruptions is one of those survival techniques I learned when I came into the Air Force. I was 23. I was fully in charge of my immediate unit. I had about 30 people, 30 airmen that were working for me, or at least they let me believe that I was in charge. But when I was in a group of peers or maybe higher ranking officers, I sometimes experienced what we just saw. So I had to learn how to navigate that. And, the Air Force all of the military services are all about professional development. So in addition to readings on leadership, I started studying communication. I found a linguist called Deborah Tannen, and she has written a ton of books about communication, about mothers and daughters, about husbands and wives. And of course, she has also written about the workplace. And what I learned from her is that men often see conversation as competition, right? You know, they interrupt as a way of perhaps gaining the upper hand. And in fact, if they're not interrupting, they sometimes see themselves as not fully contributing, right? They may walk away from the meeting or the conversation feeling that they didn't really participate or contribute to the conversation. Now, has anybody ever experienced that where, you know, maybe you had a man tell you that, you know, they didn't feel like they had participated? Just, you know, you can just wave your hand in the air. I've experienced that. I actually had a young man tell me after a meeting that he didn't feel like he had really shared, you know, what he needed to share because he wasn't really kind of in the discussion the way he felt like he needed to be. And so we're going to talk about all of that. Let me just kind of exit the full screen here. All right, so, but before we actually get to the talking about the techniques, I want to share some of the information that I've discovered over the years, the myths and stereotypes I've dispelled for myself, about gender differences in the workspace, the different motivations for conversation that create confusion and misunderstanding, and 3 ways that women can speak up and be heard. And the goal here is not to, you know, tell anybody you're doing it wrong. It's really just to help people be more aware of the things that they need to be aware of. So we had you take a poll. We're going to share some information from the poll later on. So we can stop sharing the information from the poll right now, but just take a look at that. I'm going to close that up. So before we get started again with some of the information I want to share, let's talk about, oh, and there it is, there's the agenda. Let's talk about this male environment that we find ourselves in. Now, as I mentioned, I understood that I was entering an organization where men were in positions of power, where male style interaction would be the norm. And you know, that was okay in a, you know, in a male dominated environment. The energy, the behavior, the culture may be distinctly masculine, and it may be masculine in a way that you may not have experienced before, even in your personal relationships. So unless you grew out with a lot of men, you know, a lot of brothers, or maybe you had, you know, a lot of male friends, you may not be used to the rough and tumble of male interaction, maybe the teasing, you know, the competition. And so when you bring what is stereotypical feminine behavior, you are seen as out of place. And not because that behavior is less powerful, because it isn't, but primarily because it's different, right? According to expert Carol Tarvas, when a man is the measure of all things, the normal standard, you know, regular, how it's done, then women can be seen as abnormal and wrong and forever trying to measure up. And then, you know, let's just say you kind of tap into what's considered more masculine, more male behavior. What happens then? Anybody want to, I see some hands raised. Anybody want to join in and share what happens when you tap into that masculine behavior, that more male behavior?
Hey, Renita, it's Melanie. Can you hear me?
Yes.
How are you?
I'm good.
Good. So being in the STEM environment for over, I'll say 30 years, right? Being the only woman of color in the room most of the time, you know, when you want to speak your point, you're really considered as bossy, bitchy, rude, you know, some of those terms that are very negative.
Mm-hmm.
And the real ironic thing about it, you can bring up a point and John will sit next to you and rephrase just what you said.
Yes.
And everybody else in the room is oh my God, that was amazing. So it happens. It's unfortunate that it happens, but women are not, even though they give us a seat at the table, they don't respect our seat.
Yes, you're still wrong, right? You're still
Wrong.
wrong, because that's how they don't believe a woman should be doing that, saying that, contributing to the conversation. Now, you know, you bring up it's still wrong. You know, you use some of the words that, you know, they may say under their breath, but experts, Andy Kramer and Alton Harris, call kind of what you've experienced the Goldilocks dilemma. And so, you know, if you're doing what maybe is traditional female behavior, you know, you're this way, you're perceived this way. If you violate those traditional stereotypes and behave with any authority, any competence, any independence, then you're perceived as aggressive, abrasive, bossy, you know, other B words that Melanie just shared with us, right? And that's even the case even when men aren't the majority in the environment. And that's because even though women make up almost half of the workforce, it's kind of a pyramid. So we see a lot of women at sort of the entry level, the lower level positions. And even though that management level gap is smaller, it's still a gap. And the C-suite, I mean, it's just mostly men. The real problem with the behaviors associated with leadership is that they are inconsistent with those behaviors associated with women. And this gender bias that we experience, it is fostered by, you know, those persistent, those pervasive stereotypes about our abilities, about our potential, and about our characteristics, right? So we did the poll. And we asked the question, have you ever been made to feel wrong for the way you communicated in your work environment? Melanie just shared her example. Who else has an example that they want to share about being in the male workforce and being made to feel wrong for how you were showing up? What was the percentage there, Angela, to that question?
88% said yes.
Yes, 88%. So we have a couple, I saw a couple of hands come up. Lisa?
Okay, when I was first in the military, Air Force, probably 2.5 years in, I worked in the work center, all men, the only female, and I was pulled aside by my supervisor, and he told me that I was intimidating the guys in the work center because I was studying, I knew my information, I knew what I was working on, and the guys were just kind of getting by. I was like, I'm intimidating them. They've been in the military way longer than I have, and I'm intimidating them because I know my job. You know, that was quite an experience.
Yes, that is because we show up prepared, right? I have talked to several women in preparation for this. We bring as much expertise as any of the men to the whatever environment we're in. We have to. We understand that we have to do that. So, Brenda, did you have something you wanted to share?
I was just going to say that, going along with what Lisa said, Lisa, my sister, Lisa Adams, but anyway, I was just going to say, we have to know more than them to get not even as much credit as them, but if you go in without knowing more than them, you start so low, you almost will never gain the respect that you need to be successful.
Absolutely.
So, yes.
All of that. Anybody else want to share?
Hey, Renita, it's Emma. Hey. So I remember my last phase at Stratcom. I used to get into it with one of my coworkers. Now, he had issues with me. However, he would go to our supervisor and complain about me. And one time, the supervisor called both of us in the office and kind of tried to chastise us in regards to the complaints that the guy was giving. And he said, I'm tired of both of you coming to me complaining about each other, work it out. And I had to tell him, I've never came to you complaining. And it the guy was complaining so much that he just thought it was both of us. So
Yeah.
that was interesting to me.
But as I said, it's really not you, it's the environment, it's the expectations, it's the gender stereotypes. So let's get into that piece of it. So yes, there are biological differences that affect how we show up when we were born, right? And then just in case I didn't say this earlier, who we are energetically, who we are hormonally, it's on a spectrum, right? So we all have masculine and feminine energy that we can tap into. We all have male and female hormones. However, the belief that there is this huge difference between the way men and women are biologically wired is slowly being overcome by research. So the big difference is how we're socialized, and we are still socialized very very differently. Our families, our communities, our color, whatever ethnicities we identify with, race that we identify with, all of those things are responsible for our socialization. And unfortunately for women, we are in the workplace, we are subjected to reinforcement of these stereotypes, right? And it's not just how others see us, it's also how we see ourselves. So we are often our own worst enemy when it comes to showing up in the workplace. You know, we're told as children about what we can and cannot do, what we see, what we don't see, our lived experience. All of those things affect how we see ourselves. You know, we are told to be sweet, to be silent, to be sacrificial. We are encouraged to be collaborative, to seek consensus, to communicate our feelings. We are encouraged to maintain equality, to think about, you know, how what we're doing, how that might impact somebody else, to be humble. Now, these are powerful characteristics, right? I mean, I'm hearing servant leader. I'm hearing some really positive things about how to show up in the workspace. But here's the problem. Let me move to a slide here, just a second. When we carry those childhood beliefs into adulthood, into the workplace, we often lose our power in that predominantly male environment. Again, because we're kind of squashed, but we also play into those stereotypes. So we downplay our authority, our knowledge to maintain equality, right? We make requests of those who work with us because we don't want to be seen as too pushy. We don't claim our own feelings, our own ideas, because we don't want to be seen as selfish, right? We don't want to be seen as disagreeable. We communicate our feelings and we make ourselves the subject of our observations. We apologize for our brilliance, right? Because we don't want to make others feel less than. We undermine our authority by guessing a course of action instead of giving an order. And we make ourselves small so as not to seem ambitious. And we think that this is going to make us be seen a certain way, but we don't always get the reaction that we think is going to happen. What often happens when we show up in these ways? Anybody?
Renita, this is Kathy Thigpen.
Hey.
Hi. 20 years at the power company, which is a very male-dominated industry, and it's also an industry where you don't need a college degree to enter or to advance up the ranks.
Okay.
So 20 years ago when I came in with my master's degree, I had to kind of pull that down a little bit and say to the guys, hey, listen, we took different paths to get here. I went through college, you came up through the apprenticeship program, but we're here together. And I had to do that kind of equalization, just so that we could all work together, because they were very clear with me that, what are you doing coming in here with all of these degrees? You're no better than us. And I'm like, that's not my approach.
Okay.
Find a way that we can work together.
Okay. All right. Thank you for
Yeah.
sharing that.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thanks, Kathy. Anybody else? What can happen when we show up in these ways? How can they react to us? Like Kathy was kind of told, yeah, tone it down.
Hi, Renita. How are you? This is Maggie.
Hey, Maggie.
So it's interesting that when I think of my experiences in senior leadership as a senior naval officer, that I found that while it was challenging, now that I have retired and moved into executive level positions, I feel that outside of the military, there is more of this boom, right? I just think that there's more of that, because in many instances in the military, your rank can calm it down, right?
Absolutely.
And so when you are in an executive level outside, you have to establish that, yes, just as a sister just said now, that there is equality here, that I will not be reduced. You're going to listen to me as I listen to you, and we're going to be productive and do what needs to be done. So I think that one of the things I think I shared with you before when we've had some personal conversation is how important clarity is in relationships with men in the work environment, that the absence of clarity leads to misunderstanding.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Absolutely.
And so I have found that just being clear about expectations of behavior and what is acceptable and that we are equals is real important. And anything other than that, you're going to run into lots of trouble. So those are my thoughts.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Thank you so much.
Hi, Renita. This is Victoria Bowens.
Hey, Vicki. How are you?
How are you? I'm doing wonderful. I'd like to piggyback off of what Maggie just said. You know, I think it's important as women, we set the tone in our environment, particularly if we are in a leadership position. And so when we set those conditions of expectations when we walk in the room and we present ourselves in a way that we are confident and that we are self-assured, then, you know, one of the things I find is that if you feel as a guy less than, that is on you and not on me. And that was something that I had to learn over the years, that, you know, it's unfortunate that the game is played where we listen to what the rule sets are required, we play by the rules, and then we get punished by the rules that were played, that were laid out. Mm-hmm. And so at some point in our careers, particularly when we get in that position, is that we don't, you know, I find myself that I refuse, you know, and that can be good or bad, because I've been told every time I walk in a room, here comes trouble. Well, had I paid attention to John Lewis, I would say, well, this is good trouble that's walking in the room. But that's the term that was labeled on me early in my career. Here comes trouble. And had I known better, what it was saying was that I was coming in, I was a powerful person, but they weren't ready to receive it at that time.
Absolutely. We're going to talk about those techniques, how to speak and be heard. And that's actually absolutely great advice and information that is being shared. I want to just move on real quickly to what I'm calling sort of the motivations for people when they show up in the work environment. So everybody wants to be seen in a positive professional way that's going to lead to continued employment and even promotion, right? But again, because of those gender stereotypes in the workplace, which we've already been talking about, men and women perceive motivations and behaviors of women differently, right? So, you know, we think of men as being competitive, for having the most knowledge. Women are often relegated to connection and community. And as I said, these are powerful behaviors, but they're not necessarily valued in that predominantly male work environment, right? So the expectations about how we should behave are gendered. So when we do something different, when we forcefully advocate a position or a point of view, when we pursue a competitive objective, when we are fiercely committed to performance excellence because we know we have to be, when we show up authentically but just in a different way, we experience backlash, right? And so we get, we get the male perspective that, perhaps they don't believe us. Now, and I know that many women, some may, I don't think anybody on this call right now, but I know of many women in the military who have been punished to the point of even being removed from their positions because they exhibited what we call leadership behavior. It's just leadership behavior. So behavior that is encouraged in men suddenly becomes toxic when the leader is a woman. And it's not just men who view women suspiciously. Women who have succeeded or want to succeed in predominantly male work environments say they often experience difficulty with other women, right? I've talked to some of you. I remember, Kathy, you shared an incident where a woman was being intimidated, and like the experience that Emma had with the man, also had experience with a woman where, information was being shared with superiors that wasn't in fact true. So we get a little suspicion, we get a little pushback from women in the male space. And oh my goodness, if you're a Black woman, it becomes even more, you get even more pushback for just showing up authentically. So we asked that question in the poll. We asked about conflict in the poll. Angela, what was the percentage of people that said or what did that look like? People that said they had more conflicts. We asked if people had more conflicts with men or women in the work environment, and how did the answers fall out?
Yeah, I have conflicts with men, it's 24%, and then I have conflicts with women was 12, and then the rest were kind of spaced out.
Okay, awesome. So who wants to share their experience with maybe a woman in the workplace that wasn't particularly positive?
This is Brenda. I found myself in many situations. I found myself in many situations where I've gone into the workforce, in executive positions, and once I'm there, you think you get the support, of other women, especially other Black women. But I found that not to be the case. It was always, why didn't I? Who does she think she is? Why didn't I get this position? And I'm just here, saying, well, probably because you've been sitting here for 10 years and you never even actually show any, ambitions to move, that you wanted to move forward. But it seems like it's turned against you when you come in, as a female, especially a Black female, with ambitions and wanting to move up in the workforce. And when you finally so-called arrive, you have all this animosity that's coming from these women, instead of being an example that if I can do it, you can do it too.
Right.
So that's what I found.
Thank you, Brenda. So I suspect some of that is for the same reasons that we get it from the men, is there's an expectation that, the women in that position will be looking to connect with us, that will be more communal. And they may be trying to adapt to the workplace in the same way that we adapt, exhibiting more perhaps masculine behavior. They may see us, we may see each other as a threat. And so that does happen. Who else wants to share?
Hey, Renita, it's Melanie again.
Hi.
So I think it's more culturally as women.
Okay.
Just like Brenda said, you have some Black women who are not supportive of you in a role. It also happens for some white women, for each other, for Black people. But culturally, I lead a diverse team of women, right? Indian women are not confrontational. They are very supportive. And Asian women that I've run across have been very supportive, and it's all based on their culture. They're supposed to respect people of authority, right? So when I walk in a room, some of the Indian women, Asian women, they stand up, and I'm like, why are you standing? They say, because we have to stand because you're in authority of position. So it's all, I feel like, culturally.
And we talked about that, yeah.
Yeah, and I've experienced all of that. But the thing that's really ironic to me, and I know you women have experienced this, you can sit in a room and two men will go at it, right? And you like, oh my God, they're getting ready to fight, they're fussing. And as soon as the meeting's over, they say, Bob, let's go to lunch. And you like, what? Y'all just had a throwdown fight and you go to lunch. But we women have not understood how to move past what we're working with in that room. And that's the part we need to fix, right?
Absolutely. So that rough and tumble, that back and forth, that competition, we're like, what's happening here, right? If we're not used to that, again, as I was saying earlier, if you're not used to kind of that rough and tumble, that may look like fighting to you, right? That may look like something that's negative to you, but that's just, the way that they engage. And it's not necessarily a feminine way. We just need to be aware of it. Anybody else need to share before we move on? We've got about almost 3 minutes left.
So, hi, Renita, this is Emma again.
Hey.
I also think it contributes to personality. I noticed introverts tend to not want to address people. I had an incident with a 05 Navy female, and I used to see her in the cafeteria all the time, and I would always, look to her so that we can make eye contact and speak. She would never look my way. So one time I saw her in the bathroom, and I was on my way out. She was on her way in. And I said to myself, I was like, don't even say anything. Then something said, no, go back and say something. And I was like, you're not that friendly. And so we started engaging in the conversation, and it turned out that she was friendly. And we went out to lunch and hung out a couple of times. And it was, I think I'm an introvert, and I think she was a natural introverted. So I think sometimes it could be personality as well.
That's a great point. That's going to be a part of the call to action that we're going to get to. But before we do that, let's get to some remedies for how we can show up differently in the workplace. So we can be all things in the workplace. So the descriptions that we may have internalized of gender patterns and gender identity that we have grown up with are not absolutes. And we know this. And several of you have shared that. So as I've said before, it's a matter of degree and percentages. So from a big picture perspective, we have to be aligned with our purpose, our God-given purpose. And we have to be sure of our intention when we show up in whatever environment we have decided to show up in. We have to understand that environment. And as you have all said, we have to be excellent as women. We have to, we can't be mediocre. It's not allowed if we are women. And so let's get to some specific things that we can do to speak and be heard in the work environment. If you want to have some input in the chat, I'm going to talk about some things. If you have other things that you're not seeing on the slide, you can put that in the chat. And so I encourage you all to participate. So we've already talked about just being ready to be a part of the meeting, right? Preparing to be heard when you show up at the meeting, the conference, whatever it is. And if you're going to be at the table, speak up and don't wait for somebody to invite you. Just jump in. Jump in. Being excellent, being prepared means being excellent, honing your expertise, knowing your stuff. You've all said that. The other thing that it's helpful to do when you're going to show up is to cultivate allies. So I love what Emma did with, finding this person that she perhaps thought was, not particularly friendly, and hopefully you guys became allies. But they can be, allies can be mentors, sponsors, peers, the people that are going to be a part of the discussions, the meetings, the conferences that you're going to be attending. And so making sure that you have a strategy so that everybody is heard, be it, maybe an ongoing thing. And if there is a specific presentation that you are sharing, share that with the people that you trust first, and make sure you have their buy-in. Own your space, right? So if you're at the table, I already said speak up and spread out. The other thing is spread out. Use as much space as the most important man does. So, not messy, not sloppy, but, put your things out there. If you need some papers or something that, just spread out at the table. Again, take your opening. Nobody's necessarily going to invite you in. Speak imperatively. With authority, direct, clear statements that don't leave any room for ambiguity. Activate your power pose, right? So if you are standing, think superwoman, not ready to do battle, more relaxed, but so that you don't fidget from foot to foot. So if you're standing I always try to stand in sort of a feet apart position. If you're sitting, make sure you're sitting tall, out of your sit bones, shoulders back. If you're at a table, you might want to even lean forward, put your hands or put your arms on the table. Now, how do we prevent interruption? Well, I mentioned in my experience of ignoring the people who were trying to interrupt me, that is one of the main ways to do it, right? Just ignore anybody who is attempting to interrupt you. Don't even look at them, don't look their way. Don't pause, don't slow down, just keep talking. Keep the same energy, keep the same speed. I've been known to increase the volume slightly if I felt that was necessary. And then if you have been interrupted, right? So say you are interrupted, make sure that your ally, the person that's at the table that you've already prepped, is ready to say, you know what, I'd like to hear what Emma has to say. Or I want to hear Mel's idea. And then speaking up for people who are interrupted, because it's harder for somebody to kind of control the conversation when there are two people that they're having to contend with. And then if you are interrupted, be sure and go back and finish your thought. You can do the classic it's kind of passive aggressive. Before I was interrupted, I was saying, that's kind of a passive aggressive way to do it. If the interrupter is more senior to you, you can use an approach, such as, whatever that person's name is. Do you mind if I finish my point? If a person continues to interrupt you, you might need to use a firmer tone, an excuse me, I'm not done. I was trying to make this point. I'd appreciate if you would not interrupt me. If you don't want to come across as an angry Black woman, you can use the approach our Vice President-elect used, which was, I'm speaking. Right? So who else has, let's see, do we have any positions? Do we have any?
We have a great chat discussion going on.
Lots of chats going on. I love that. So we have a few minutes left. I have an exercise that I want us to do, but I think we're going to run out of time. So we're not going to do that. I'm going to issue a call to action, and then we're going to have a little Q&A, all right, as we kind of run out of time. So we have just broken amazing, important glass ceiling in our country. And we're here for a reason. We've been called for such a time as this. In leadership, we have followed a European male model of leadership since the founding of our country. It doesn't work for everyone. In fact, I don't think it works for anyone. And we are seeing change happen as more women step into leadership position. So let's accelerate that change by being a part of it. Because we can't expect those who have benefited from the model to be responsible for dismantling it. It's not going to disappear unless we continue to stand up, to speak out, to demand a seat at the table, and insist our voices are heard. Men and women experience a predominantly male workplace in fundamentally different ways. Men as a place of acceptance and support. Women, we are often othered. So, while you're at the table, make room for another woman, and then model something different for that woman that you've taken under your wing, that peer, that mentee, that protege. Something that looks like what you want, something that's more collaborative, more inclusive, more communal. Let's embrace those stereotypes that are considered negative. I challenge you to create a safe space for you and then be all of those things. So we're going to open it up for questions, I believe, comments, Angela.
Yeah. Yep. So we're going to be moving to our Q&A time. So if you have some questions, go ahead and put them into the chat so we can at least start gathering what's out there. In the meantime, before we jump in, Livia is going to announce our first trivia question. Yes, we're going to be doing some giveaways of Renita's book. And so whoever has the correct answer first and types it into the chats will be the winners of question number 1. So Livia's our community manager at Moxie. So take it away, Livia.
I am typing and I'll let you guys know once I am ready to press enter.
Oh, okay. So she's typing it in right now. In the meantime, Renita, I just wanted to say something real fast. Maybe it's a question to speak into, but I don't know if you've heard before of the princess effect that a lot of women have. And it's, we go around just waiting for somebody to put the crown on our head. You know, it's like trying to like, yeah. So it's especially as helpful to me when I was younger coming up in my career, but it was like, well, if I keep just being right and like acting these certain ways, like somebody will come and give me leadership or give me this, instead of this activating self of, you know, no, I need to work after this and I can even ask for it or pursue it, instead of just sitting back like some sort of princess saying, okay, well now you get the crown.
Take that crown, Angela.
I will. Okay. And
okay,
anyone you got it?
I'll send the question right now, okay?
Okay. So what's
All
our
right.
first question? Research show men interrupt more because they feel that it makes them feel they are. And we'll let Renita decide who's the winner. What's the actual word? Or I guess Livia has the answer.
All of the answers are great. Well, you know, Shalane was first.
What, Livia? What was the correct one?
So
oh, okay. All right.
the term Renita used was heard, and Lynn got it right.
Okay.
Nice. Way to go,
All
Lynn.
right. Lynn was the right one. Lynn,
Awesome.
Canada.
All right. While Livia works on the next question, let's take a Q&A question for Renita. If you want to just, I don't see any in the chat, so if you want to just shout it out, go ahead.
Hi, my name is Caleb. I have a very good question.
Okay.
I work into a hotel industry, and all the locations I've been working has been male dominant as far as regional regional management.
Mm-hmm.
So one of the things is like when I was working at one location, I had came because they had told me that one of our management were getting ready to leave. And that was the next thing that I wanted to do, is become in a management position.
Mm-hmm.
I went to the GM, which was a woman, and she had spoken over to him. He said he didn't want anybody else, he didn't want any woman to become into a management.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So what happened was one of the girls that I worked with at the front desk, she is a young Black woman as well as I was. I came in and I saw that she got a paper saying that they wanted her to be the front desk manager. I told her she should go ahead and do it. She didn't want to, because now it's so much in the conflict that he is such an airhead to the point he doesn't like what nobody else is doing, even if somebody else is literally trying to pretty much pan out everybody at the front desk.
So, Caleb, let me interrupt you. It sounds like an HR issue. If they are actually, you know, if that's actually being said, verbalized out loud, it sounds like an HR issue.
It could be. I mean,
keep fighting for what you want. Keep prepping yourself, you know, learning about management, taking leadership courses, taking communication courses, so that you can be the best woman, best leader that you can be when you get ready to take on that position.
I most definitely did, because once I started to see everything that he was doing, he almost tried to get some other people fired from the hotel.
Yeah,
I took my own steps up, and I went to a different location that he used to be original over. And
Gotcha.
once I left there, I actually fulfilled what I actually wanted to be. Instead of being even just a manager, it was the first step before that, which I became a supervisor at the front desk.
Oh, awesome. So you figured it out.
I did, but it's like it's sometimes it is the male dominance that they feel as though they can take every step, or they can try to shut down a woman's perspective at a hotel industry.
Absolutely.
Especially for a 26-year-old, I did not feel, or I even pushed the young lady to take it. And
Yeah.
when she comes and talks to me, she tells me how stressed she is from all the other things that when I was there, she just can't handle it anymore because of what they're doing.
Yeah, that's unfortunate. Unfortunately, we're not going to, despite, women being in leadership positions, we're not going to change the workplace overnight. But, there are things that, we can do, and which is why I issued the challenge. Are we ready for our next trivia?
Yeah, let's go for it.
Yes, we are. All right, you guys ready? On the chat right now.
We're ready. Name one way you can make yourself be heard in the workforce. Who's got it?
Next
What
generations at yahoo.com. So
what is the
I
correct
actually,
response, Livia?
so Renita had a bunch of correct responses and I took a screenshot so I knew it. Yeah, speak imperatively is the right answer. So next generation at yahoo.com. I need your name. I will talk to you privately.
All right.
Perfect.
All great answers.
We probably have time for one more question.
Okay.
And then one more, then the last trivia, and then we will end. So anyone have a real quick question for Renita?
Yes, Renita, this is Victoria Bowens.
Hey, Vicki.
How are you? So I've learned a new term, and I was on a call the other day, and it's called Imposter Syndrome. Have you heard of that?
I have, yes.
And so I think, so my question is, early on when women were coming into the field, particularly in a male-dominated environment, that other women did not necessarily embrace other women, and to assume that maybe the imposter syndrome was occurring at the time when in fact maybe those women were qualified to do that, but there was an assumption that you weren't. So can you explain or share more about the imposter syndrome and how we as women need to ensure we embrace and support other women? Over.
So the imposter syndrome is more of an internal thing, right? And so it is how we feel about ourselves. So all of those things that I talked about, those gender stereotypes that, we're this, we're that, we're not this, we're not that, those show up in the workspace. And so we get to these positions of leadership and power and we're like, well, should I be here? So it's an internal thing. And that keeps us from doing some of the things that we need to do. So yeah, I kind of alluded to that when we talked about those gender stereotypes, but the imposter syndrome is something that we feel about ourselves.
Yeah, that's great. Livia, do we have the last question ready to go?
Yes, ready to go.
All
You
right,
guys ready?
final shot. Whoever wants the free book. Expectations of how women behave are, what are some of those expectations that Renita said? Oh, emotional, antiquated, based on what others saw growing up. Be sweet. Is there a right answer in there? I'm sure there's something right, but what did Renita say?
All right, so Renita said 3 different things. She said, none of you guys said like exactly what she said, but I'll let her peek, like the right answer. So she said gender-based or cultural-based.
So cultural mindset.
You have like a cultural mindset there, but The correct answer would be gendered. That's the word she used.
Well, next generations can't win twice. So
Right. So
Right. And so expectations, it's the stereotypes, is, you know, what we've been told about what we should behave, how we should behave. And so those expectations show up, and when we behave differently, then, you know, people are looking at us askance, like, what, why are you not behaving in this way that I expected you to behave?
I'll throw the tiebreaker out there.
Okay.
How many years was Renita in the Air Force? Does anybody remember? 27, 40, 20,
right.
27. What is it?
Wait. 27.
Oh, good job, Lisa.
Lisa was first.
You look way too young for that amount of years.
Thank you.
You get a free book too. Okay.
Oh my God. Thank you all so much. Angela, over to you.
Yeah, you guys, this was great. I mean, it just reminded me that I think we need another conversation, that it maybe is step 2 from this. And again, like, we're here to not just like bash men, but there is the reality. We need to be able to understand and learn how to better communicate, how to stand up, how to not like look down on ourselves and the gifts and the way we're made. But we can lead, and we should, and we need to step up and do that. So I enjoy this, Renita. It's always a pleasure hearing you speak. And I just want to let you guys all know that we have a couple other events coming up. One, actually, Renita reminded me, we have a Moxie women meeting, and these are really informal. I will send you the details on that in a follow-up email. So just keep a look for that. It's another Zoom link. It's just kind of a small group of women discussing things and having a good time and laughing a lot. The next
we do professional stuff too, right?
Yes. Sorry, it's not just like hanging out over mimosas. It is very professional, and that's what I love about it. I'm going to put a link also in the meeting about Moxie and how we are opening in like 3 weeks. Really exciting. If you are interested in participating more in some of these workshops, in coming to our space, maybe using a conference room, or if you actually need a space to work out of as a coworker or a private office, would love to give you a private tour to learn more about your business. And we're really here to support minority and women entrepreneurs and founders to help them be successful. And with that as well, we our next kind of big official event is called Capital Matchmaker. I'll also put this in here. And we have found 3 founders in Chicago who are going to be participating in a pitch event. All of them are Black-led or Latinx-led, and we are really excited to be able to feature them as kind of a pitch night, give out awards, and also kind of dedicate the new building, show off the space, and would love to see you guys there as well. So happy Veterans Day. There were so many veterans here. That makes me really excited. Thank you guys for your service. And again, I'll do a follow-up email if you have any questions. Renita, you rock, as always.
Thank you.
All right, guys.
Happy Veterans Day to my
Enjoy the rest of your day. Thank you all.